Sound good? Okay. Okay, so hello everyone, um, and welcome. So today I will talk to you about the HR application on a technical aspect. I'm Bertrand Ossogne. I'm a developer at Odoo since 2 years, and I'm working in the R&D for, you guessed it, the HR development team. Sorry. Before we start, if you guys have some question coming up once I started the presentation, you can go on this pad. So either scan the QR code or go on that URL. You can write down your questions, and I will answer them afterwards. So, what will I talk about? HR is a very broad scope. So instead of going through every application one by one, I decided to do things differently and go more on an aspect of the challenges we face as developers while developing our applications. So I'll start by giving a quick overview of the scope that we manage, and then I'll give some example of challenges that we faced through the employee applications, the time off application, attendance application, and then we'll end up with the Q&A sections. Okay, let's start with the scope. So human resources is centered around the humans, which are the employees. So the heart of our applications is the employees applications. And around that, we build some other applications that help us manage those employees. And I group them in 4 main categories, which are the recruitment, the administrative part of things, the follow-up of employees with skills and appraisals, and finally, things related around presence, so time off, attendance, remote work, etc. We also manage other modules and applications, but I will not talk about them here. Some numbers about our team. So we are 10 members. We are 9 developers and 1 product owner. We manage a total of 13 applications, which results in 139 modules, 35 in community and 104 in enterprise. So those modules handle bridges application, so make the link between multiple applications. But it's also the localization, for example, so payroll requires localization. Those are modules as well, etc., etc. Okay, first application, the heart of HR, which is the employees. The employees is a very simple application, but it's the base model for everything. What were the needs and what are the challenges to create this application? So our needs, the base needs that we have for employees is to represent the internal hierarchy, store and manage the employee information, and handle the privacy of those information. And that is the central point that I will talk about here, because those are the real challenges. So we want to avoid access to personal information of the employees for any user. We want also to provide adapted views to the user, so given the rights, what are the information that you will be able to see. And as this is a central application that we rely on to build everything around, we want to keep the code base as clear as possible. So, with the main point being the personal information, what we decided to do is to have actually 3 models for the employees, and I will explain why we chose that and how it works. So basically, we don't want to serve to the users information, so private information about the employees. And so for that, those 3 models allow us to handle that. The first model that we have is the employee base model. This one is abstract, and it defines every public fields. That allows us to simply have every field, public field handled in one spot only, which is that model. And the two other models will inherit from this. The second model is the employee public. The public employee is inheriting so from base and sets every field in read-only mode. So that means that you will not be able to modify information about that employee from there. And it is also set in auto-false. That is an attribute on models that means that simply it won't be stored in the database. So that allows us to avoid having duplicate information. And the last model, which is the employee model, will inherit as well from the base, so have all the public fields. But it will also define all the private fields. And it's the model that will be stored in the database and will be the field reference by every other model. For that, we need to provide adapted views to the user, because if you have administration rights or not, you are allowed to access private employees' information. So what we did is that we did, to access views, an override of the getView method, which simply checks the rights of the user. And if the user has those rights, he'll be redirected to the view of the employee, while if he does not have those, he'll be redirected to the employee public views. There is another case for which we want to give those information correctly, and it is through fields. And through fields, at first, we did this way. So we have an attribute on fields for the views that is called relation. And it allows us to redirect the field to one model or another. So at first, what we did is that we had two different fields on the view. One that was only visible for people with rights, and one visible for those who don't have those rights. And accordingly, we then set the relation to the correct model. But the issue is that we have everywhere we have employee field, we have to define we have to put two fields instead of one. So it makes the code a little bit less clear. And the other issue is that it might lead to web client issues. So having duplicate information on the field might give back wrong information afterwards. And the other solution that we could have with that is to have only one field that is only related to the public employee model. But the issue with that is that people who have the rights to access private information won't be able to do so while handling that field. So for the 17 version, what we did is add another solution. The solution we came up with is mixin. So it's a method that will take in argument a class and will inherit from that class while adding some additional information, which is done through two things. At first, on the setup, we will determine a new property, which is HR user. And that will store if the user accessing the view has the rights or not. And then just below, we can see that we have a getter for the relation, and it will give dynamically employee or employee public given the property that has been created above. And as it might seem a bit tedious, in the end, that allows us to create widgets through that mixin that can also inherit from other widgets pre-existing. And in the view, we can see here below. What we only have to do is put the field and specify the widget that we want to use, and we don't have anything more to add to it. Sorry. Okay, so here's, before going to the next part, just a quick overview of what HR, the actual HR module looks like. So it's very few information in the end. We have the 3 employee models, and we have basic information like the category of employee, the job, contract type, and department. So we do not go into much complexity with that. Before switching to the time of module, you may have heard yesterday in What's New in HR that we have a new org chart view. This is a new view, actually, that you can use to any other model. So here it's an example for the employee module. What is actually this view? This view is defined in the web hierarchy module. And it uses template a bit like the Kanban view, so you can create templates for your view. And you have to specify specific attributes, so either the child field or the parent field that allow you to organize the hierarchy. You also have a draggable attribute. The draggable attribute will specify with a Boolean, so either true or false, if you can modify the hierarchy directly from the view itself, rather than going through the records and modifying by hand. We already implemented views like this one for the departments and for the employees. And it's also notable that you can integrate those views in knowledge articles. So on the right, you can see, for example, an article which integrates the view from the employee HR org chart. Next application that I will talk about today is the time of application. The time of application is the application that will allow to manage the leaves of the employee, either creating them by the user themselves or manage them as the HR officer. So what are the needs when we want to create leaves? As we have a lot of different countries implementing the way leaves are used in different manners, we have to take a lot of things into account. So here are some examples of the needs we have. So how do we manage the allocations of the employee? How do we manage the leaves? How do we manage the accruals? Because some countries have accrual plans. Accrual plans are basically time off that are given over time rather than all at the same time. How do we manage public holidays, paid time off or sick leave? And what if you plan an Odoo experience and you want employees to be present? Those are some of the needs that you have when you create time offs. And what's the challenge behind? Well, every of those aspects create challenges. So how do we manage the counts? How much do I have left? How much will I get in the future if I have accrual plans? What happens when I change something in my leaves? What if I want to take my leave across 2 years? Is there issues with the leaves I planned, etc., etc.? So here is the models we came up with to manage that. So we obviously have the leaves, which is interacting with the employees. Leaves are managed by a certain leave type. Leave types are, for example, if you are taking a sick time off or a paid time off, those are handled very differently. If you have paid time off, it's limited, so you need to create allocations for that. And for the accrual plans, what we have is that we also have a model for those plans, and each actual plant might have some levels. We also have a model for that. We had a big change recently. And for the 17, the breaking change that we had is that we came from this. So that was the organization before, to this. So what we did is remove the link between the allocation and the leaf. Why did we do that? It's because for the usability, we want them to be able to take leaves if they can. So for example, I talked a bit before about taking a leaf across 2023 and 2024. If you have an allocation for 1 year and an allocation for another, taking a leaf across both cannot work if you have a direct link between both. To compare a bit the two solutions, so one direct link stored in the database and one indirect link, which is our solution. The positive aspects of the direct link was that it was stored, so we could access really easily the information, and it was really easy to compute, one leave, one allocation. But that was not dynamic, so on modification and stuff like that, it wasn't really reactive. And as I said with the example across 2 years, it was putting some limitation for the users. Now, with the indirect link, we compensate that with that dynamic aspect and the fact that we can now take leaves across multiple allocations. But the issue was that it has to be computed every time since it's dynamic, and it's not that easy to compute because we have a lot of things to take into account. For the solution, we have one main function that I will quickly overview, which is the getConsumed_leaves method, which is a method that is defined on the employee model. This method allows us to create that link between both. So what does it take in input? It takes the leaf types that we want to check. It will take into account the target date. So if you want to create a leaf in the future, your allocations might not be the same as it is now, for example. And there is also ignore future leaves. We don't take into account future leaves when we work with accruals, for example. And what do we have in output? We receive 2 dictionaries. This is grouped data that is by employee, by leaf type, and by allocation. And those dictionaries are not clearly establishing a link between allocation and leaves, but it's more useful data that we will have the need for afterwards. So either for display on the employee dashboard, or for verification, can I actually take my leave? What is the logic behind that method? Well, it fetches every data that it needs, the allocation, the leaves, etc. It will reorganize it. So for example, the allocation, we always want to take our leave on the allocation that will expire first, so we can take leave the more optimized way. And then it will loop over every leave on every allocation for each leave type and each employee, and take into account the useful data. So for each allocation, how much leaves were taken, what are the remaining leaves, what is the maximum that we have in total, what eventually is the future amount that we will have if we have an accrual plan. Once this data is organized, it checks if every information is correctly taken into account. If not, it will put it in one of the 2 dictionaries that it's returned to signify that there is an issue. And it stores it, so all the unmanaged content. And that leads us then to, for example, the display of the information. So once you are on your time of dashboard, you can see what you have left, and you can have the details of how it is taken and what leads to that amount. Oh shit. Finally, I'll talk a bit about the attendances application, which is an application that really have evolved over this year, thanks to one of the developer of our team. I will not go over every functional change that we have, because technically wise, they are not that interesting. I'll just talk about one small point, which is the change on the kiosk. So the kiosk is the portal that would allow us to check in or check out to signify the attendances. So the attendances are when is arriving the employee and when is he leaving. So the kiosk allow you to check in or check out either through the scan of the badge or through the choice of your employee. So why did we do a change? The change is that before you had to be logged with a user to be accessing the kiosk. The issue with that is that since now the pricing makes the price rise up every time you add a user, you had to add an additional user with certain access rights for that. And it could also lead to some security issues since you had an actual user logged on an account on the terminal. And so what changed? No, this is userless. So the kiosk now doesn't require a user to be logged in. And it's even more than that because you cannot be logged while on the kiosk. So if you are connected with a user once you log in, once you access the, if you are, sorry, if you are connected with a user once you try to access the kiosk, it will automatically unlog you. And the kiosk will be accessed through a token. That token can be renewable anytime through the settings. And yeah, so now you can either log in through the scan, but as I said before, you can also choose the employee for that. I went a bit quicker than expected, so I'm already over. I will now switch to the questions. I have none, so if you have any, I will put back the pad if there is any. Otherwise, that will be it. Thank you. I'm keeping it up for 10 more seconds and then I switch back to the pad. If some people want to access it still. Is that a full question? So I see a complete sentence time of question. We have employees on a different time zone, Europe, Asia, South America. If I look at the dashboard from my office in Thailand, the leave from my employees in Europe or South America appear incorrectly, starting in the middle of my day instead of being displayed as full days. Okay, so that is more like a bug report. I will report it to the team and see what we can do on that. Will you make a multi-currency payroll? I don't know if it's planned, but it can be done, I guess. So yeah. If you want, after this presentation, there will be one about payroll, so you can also ask it there. Is it planned to include some kind of internal leave management, for example, when assigning activities to a user? I don't understand that question, sadly, so maybe either make it a bit more precise. Is it possible to have employee belonging to multiple companies? Actually, how it's working now for employees is that if you are an employee working on multiple companies, you will have one employee per company. That is a choice that we made because for the management of some stuff, it makes it way easier to have multiple employees. Though indeed, it's a bit harder to keep track of everything. Though if the employees are linked to a user or a partner, you can see clearly which employees are related to what person. What's the reasons you made the kiosk userless? To explain it, so there are two main reasons. The main reason is obviously security issues. Having someone logged in for a kiosk to be up, it might lead to some issues. And one other reason that we had to make the kiosks userless was because since the Odoo pricing make the price go up with the amount of users that you have, having one additional users only for the kiosk is a bit much. So that is also one of the reasons. So that allows people to pay a bit less while still having a kiosk. Did you change something to the private address contact and employee? As before, it was creating a contact for private information. Indeed. Before, an employee had multiple partners linked to it. There was at least one partner which was a work partner with the address of the office and stuff like that. And there was also another partner, which is the private partner with the private information of the employee, so its private address and etc. As we didn't want to have too much partners involved in the database, we decided to drop altogether those information from a private employee and move it back to the employee. So now, instead of having a partner which will have the name, the address, the phone, the mail of the user, the employee, sorry, it will directly be on the employee. So you will have a field that is private street, private city, private country, etc. to manage those information directly on the employee model. I think the last question is not complete. Are other team hierarchy models available? How do you handle access right now for this? I don't know what it's related to. Is it related to the question above? How do we handle access rights? The same way as every other private field. So since the employee model holds every private field, private information about the employee, those fields are handled just like those. And so, yeah. No specific group. I don't think so as of now. For now, I think we only manage the employees through 3 groups. Either, well, 2 actually. You either are officer and you can manage every employee information, regardless of the fields. And if you are an administrator, you have the same accesses, but you also have configuration accesses. Is it planned to include some kind of internal leave management? For example, when assigning activities to a user? Oop, I cannot see, I'll do some extra. The user creating activities should, in that case, be notified that the assignee is unavailable and who might be substitutes. Yes, I don't know how it is planned to evolve on that point, though it's something that we have to think of because it relates to multiple applications that could be made through the leave, so the time of application, but it could also be done through other things like attendances, for example. So I don't know yet if we have a solution on that, but that's something we have to think on indeed. Are other team hierarchy models available on the classical one? For now, there is only the department field on the employee, and the department can be organized with parent and children, so it can be already well organized. But I don't know what the Scrum teams is, sadly. So I cannot go into more explanation for that. Okay. I see I have one more question popping in. So can we add the attendance location to the app? It actually is. So from the 17th version, you'll now be able to see on the check-in and on the checkout of the employees what are their GPS location, which is got through the browser. You will have both the geolocalization information and you will also get the IP if needed. And that is, yeah, so that will be available from the 17th. Can you explain how future leave visualization work? Yes. So now what you can do in time off for people that have actual plans and that want to take some time off in advance, you will be able to take your leaves in the future, but you want also to be able to see how many leaves you will have at that point. So now, for people who have an actual plan, you will have an additional option on the time off dashboard, which will let you choose a date on which you will be able to visualize how many time off you will have available at that specific date. Okay. I don't see any more question pop in, so I'll wrap this up. If you still have some questions that come later, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. I put an answer in there. You can also, if you want, join us at the HR booth for questions, and we will be able to answer them over there. So thank you, and have a nice end of Odoo experience.